as you stated as well, I just want to tell the truth. I want to bring facts. Everything I say can be verified, and I will provide all of the sources. When I go into my debates, I provide all of the sources, all the links, all the references, and these can be provided so that anyone is able to look them up and verify what I'm saying. Because you see, I'm not going to necessarily just provide opinion. In fact, the Quran says, he who interprets the Quran or reads the Quran from personal opinion is in error. Right? Actually, that reference, he who reads the Quran from personal opinion is in error. That's actually within the Sharia, section 14.1, if I recall. We are going to utilize all of the most authentic, most sound, most trusted sources of Islam to actually understand it, so that we don't simply just use our opinion or the example of some Islamophobe. For instance, I often quote from the most trusted, the biggest Islamic website on the planet, which is Islam QA. And if these people are quoting falsities, then Islam is false. If these people are quoting falsehoods, then they are lying to millions and millions and millions of Muslims. Then they're committing blasphemy.
So you're getting your sources directly from there, and then these people that are saying that you're wrong, you're a Christian Zionist, this guy is now saying. Basically what they're trying to do is kill the messenger. But what you're saying is you're quoting directly from official Islamic sources, and that if they have an issue with what we're discussing here, they need to take it up with those sources. We're not trying to distort anything. We're not misrepresenting anything. We're just presenting the information itself.
Correct. Look, this is an information war. I honestly believe that, because there's so much distortion. There's so much propaganda out there, and I want to help people to know the facts and separate the truth from the propaganda. Further, Islam divides people into two categories. You have the Muslims and you have the kafir.
Kafir, right, which is what they call us, everybody who is basically an infidel.
Correct. And Muslims and kafirs,
infidels are supposed to be killed.
Yes. Kafirs are not equal to Muslims. Kafirs are not given the same legal status as Muslims. That is, I mean, if you want to give it a modern term, that is true apartheid, because you do not have the same rights under Islam as a Muslim does. So there is this very distinct separation within the theology and within the legal system, which if Islam becomes the dominant culture within the West, you will start to see that further and further oppression of women who have a lower status than men, and of the kafir who have the lowest status of all.
And we see that happening in Europe right now.
There are certainly issues in Europe, so definitely. Let me perhaps define a few terms so that we can try and get everyone on the same page, because Islam doesn't necessarily mean the same thing within its culture, within its context, as we accept it in English. Would it be okay if I just cover some of these points?
Absolutely.
Okay. So Islam, very often I'll engage in debate, and I engage in some heavy debates that go on for days. Now, people will say Islam means peace. No. In Arabic, the word salam means peace. That's why you say salam alaikum, peace be with you, right? Islam, while they do come from the same root, they're not the same word. Islam means submission to the will of Allah, right? Islam creates Muslims. Muslims don't create Islam. Islam creates Muslims. A Muslim is one who has submitted to the will of Allah.
And it's not like a Christian submits to natural law and truth as God. It's a totally different type of submission.
Yeah, that's certainly something that's worth getting into. It's a different, you are the slave of Allah. For instance, I will discuss this as we go, but in Christianity, you regard God as your father. Whereas in Islam, you are God's slave, literal slave. And in fact, it's blasphemy to review God as your father. Now, Islam divides the world. It divides people and it divides the world. So the Islam divides the world into what's called the Dar al-Islam and the Dar al-Harb. The Dar al-Islam is the house of Islam, the Middle East effectively, where Islam has been established. And the Dar al-Harb is the house of war. And the house of war is in the process of submitting. Now, world peace in Islam, Islam being the religion of peace, is world Islam.
Now, talk
So
about what do the Islamists mean when they say it's a world of peace? That means when
religion of
everyone submits
everyone has been submitted, then
to
we will have
Islam.
peace. Then we
Correct.
will have
It's
that is
not. It's not. Whereas in Christianity, everyone submits to truth and natural law. In Islam, everyone submits to Islam.
correct.
Okay.
Correct. That is exactly what it is. Then you will have what's called the Dar al Salam, the house of peace, once the entire world has been submitted. And this is not a voluntary submission. You will be submitted. So, and basically, the Dar al Salam is a simple definition is it's a term for countries where Islam can be practiced safely. There you have the Dar al Salam. So the Ummah is another term that is very common. It's essentially the Islamic community. When you're a Muslim, you're a part of the Ummah, which is like a supranational state. You belong to the Ummah. You're a Muslim first before you're an American. You're a Muslim first before you're British. So you belong to the Ummah before you belong to the state, the nationality that you were born into.
Sorry to interrupt you there.
Sure.
He's calling us names and saying it's a reference to Muslims that are apostates, not non-Muslims. This is BS, he says. Kafir is only a reference to Muslims, not to non-Muslims.
No, if you go through, as you start to go through the sources, you will discover that Kafirs are non-Muslims. They're non-believers. That's easy. Anyone can look that up. That's very, very simple. A non-Muslim is, you see, for you to declare someone a non-Muslim who is a Muslim, that is to declare takfir. And you can't do that as just a Muslim. You need to get someone in authority to do that, because you're declaring them an apostate, and that's the crime of ridda. Okay?
Right.
So they would be an apostate. We are the mushrikun. We are the people who do not believe in Allah. We do not believe in Islam. That's a different status. That's a different word. Typically, anything that is discussed in Islam will be contained somewhere within its sources, and its definition, its meaning, its legal status can be found in the Sharia or one of the other sources.
Right now, yeah, basically what the Islamists are doing is taking up name-calling rather than intellectual discussion here. Is that what you generally find, or?
Yes, yes. Look, we are not supposed to, as kafir, to discuss the Islamic sources, to reveal their secrets, to discuss their intentions. And it's embarrassing. A lot of this is very embarrassing. It's very awkward.
Yeah,
And also,
it's all name calling. Not interested in hearing what we have to say. They are just interested in name calling. And I'm wondering if they've even studied all of these sources themselves.
very often they haven't. Very, very often they haven't. They'll send you to refer to a scholar. You need to get it from a fellow Muslim, but Muslims are not allowed to do their interpretation. Most of them are simply just, remember, they submit. They're told what to think. They're not told how to think.
Right.
Right. They're given that. So well, hopefully that sets a bit of a foundation in terms of the meaning, that how these words mean something different within Islam than they do within the Western context.